Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Horny Creek. My name is Mark. With me as always is my fiance, Carol. How you doing today, Carol?
Hey, what's up?
How much? It's been a good week here. It's November 18th, 1998. We are rocketing towards the end of 1998.
So quickly. It's going to be Thanksgiving any minute.
Yeah, that's right. And then Christmas, and then New Year, and then 1999.
Party like it's 1999.
Exactly. Carol.
Yes.
This week, this episode, they pulled an all-nighter.
Yep, this was one of the horniest episodes I think they've ever had.
It's a pretty horny episode.
Gotta say. So
and Carol's dressed for it.
I am. I am proudly dressed for it. Anyway, Dawson and Joey.
Jawson.
Dawson and Joey are their couple's
their
name.
Couple name is Jawson.
That's awful.
You know what it would be though, really?
Huh?
Doughy.
Ew. Ew, I don't like it at all.
Maybe that's why they don't work. It'd be Jawson or Doughy.
Yeah, definitely not.
Well, it's so Den or also Jawson because her name's Jen.
Yeah.
Or I guess Denifer.
There you go.
That sounds better. Denifer, everyone?
I don't know.
Yes, let's agree on that on Denifer.
But they're not a couple, so it does not matter.
Pacey and Andy, Pandy.
Yes.
I kind of like that.
That works. I like it.
Anyway, yes, one of the horniest episodes. Dawson and Dawson and Joey.
Nobody can talk today.
It's tongue-tied Tuesday, even though it's not Tuesday. Anyway, go ahead.
So they had broken up last episode.
They did, because she wanted to move on or whatever.
Because she wanted to focus on herself, I think, was her reasoning. Whatever.
I need to focus on my career, Dawson.
Because her whole life,
me.
Yeah, her whole life's been about him, and she wants it to be about her.
It's really weird.
Yeah, she's being kind of bitchy.
We don't like it.
No. So Dawson's hanging out with his mom having movie night since Joey can't be there, which is just sad.
Yes. They're watching, what were they watching?
I don't know, there was a bunch of, there was like a pile of movies. One of them I noticed was Terms of Endearment, but that wasn't the one they were actively watching.
They were watching a 70s movie, and I can't remember which one it was.
But they were watching a bunch of sappy shit is what they were watching.
Yeah, they were watching a bunch of romances or, unrequited romances or whatever.
Yeah.
She's been broken up with by TV's The Flash, John Wesley Shipp, and he's been broken up with by TV's Joey Potter.
Right.
Katie Holmes.
And his mom has some advice for him. Mm-hmm. That he should spend more time wallowing.
Yeah.
And, you do need some time. Like, he's apparently just acting like everything's normal. You don't do that after your breakup.
Fuck no.
She's like, you should, eat candy and...
Yeah, ice cream.
I feel bad about
wallow yourself. and a lot. She's like, there are only a few advantages to being the dumpy, but you need to embrace them.
Right. So
none of them were ask a lot of questions to your former paramour and follow him around like a puppy and stalk him. She didn't ask any of it. She didn't say any of that shit.
No, well, he didn't take her advice.
No.
She had good advice.
I didn't see him eat one piece of licorice.
Nope. So the next day at school,
yeah,
they're in what the fuck class is this? It's
English.
It
has to be
literature. I mean, that's like
sure English lit, whatever you want. Yeah.
Well, I mean, because you've got English composition, you've got English literature. Like, it's definitely lit.
It's one of the English classes, yeah. And they're in high school, so I don't know if they break it up like that, but I think that when you went to high school or a different age, because maybe you're still in high school,
and we're engaged and living together, that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that's not true, but anyway, then they'll never know what our age is. That's the point.
It's a secret.
But when you were in high school, did they have it broken up like this year you're in English lit, this year you're in English composition, or because they didn't do it for us.
Well, I mean, I took Shakespeare one year, and I took
in high school.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I took, just English. But
that was an emotional class, huh?
I don't know what just happened to my voice, but
all of a sudden you're having flashbacks like you were in Vietnam. I took English. Oh my God.
I mean, I remember reading books for English, so I guess maybe they combined it. Like, I remember reading Fahrenheit 451 and doing book reports. But I guess that was the same class where you learned grammar and stuff. Yeah,
well, that's so for us in high school, we had 4 English classes.
Okay.
You had to have an English every year. So every year you had one, and that's all they called it was English. And mostly we would do reading and writing whatever reports on what we read. But I guess they did do some grammar, I suppose. And then there were English electives. Like I took creative writing one year. Or there would be like, what's another one? Like speech, I think was speech class was technically an English class, but it was, so that was an elective.
Interesting.
Nothing you had to take.
So they're taking some kind of English class where they're going over a lot of literature.
Yeah.
And this professor is insane.
Yes, he is.
He's talking about like this midterm, I guess, is what they're studying for. It's some big test in his class that he's like, it's life or death. You must memorize everything. It's so important. Blah blah blah. And he says, show up for this test thing or not the study group that I'm going to have after school.
Yeah,
if you want to pass.
He's going to have a study session where he's going to lead the study session for everybody, and it's on a bunch of obscure books like. I think they're doing Hamlet. Oh, Hamlet's what they were watching. They were watching the 70s version of Hamlet. But it's on like Hamlet, Beowulf, Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 books.
Classics.
Yeah, I mean, but like that's a lot.
It is.
To do a test on all of those, it's weird.
Yeah, and like in college, I had a class where I had to read about 6 books in like one semester. I can't imagine doing that in high school. No. That's too much.
And you, when you do that in college, usually like you have to read those books. You like write a book report or a report or whatever about each book, and that's it. You're not like tested on each book.
No, there were tests.
Oh, okay.
There was class discussion. There was tests. There was
interesting
writing. There was all of it. But yeah, so he's acting like this is absolutely imperative. So not Dawson, who is part of this initial discussion of wanting to go to this thing?
Initial discussion is Andy, and Jen, and that rapist.
The rapist?
Well, whatever, the
rapist?
The jock. He's not a rapist.
What the fuck?
He's not a rapist, but like he gives me rapist vibes.
Okay, he's not even a jock. The dude he's just a womanizer.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't think he didn't strike me as a jock. He strikes me as a deviant.
Yeah, I don't like him.
Well, I don't like him either. He's a shit person. He was very rude to Dawson.
Yeah, and he was very rude to Pacey too.
I don't remember that.
Well, we'll get to it.
Okay.
He was rude to everyone except for Jen. And then once he got what he wanted from Jen, he was like, whatever.
He was a little standoffish.
I'm done with you now.
Yeah. But, I mean, like, can't expect anything more from a guy like that.
No, and supposedly she knew what she was getting into or whatever, but, yeah, who knows?
So, yeah, he's some rich, sleazy dude. Mm-hmm. So, they're talking about going to the study session. They all show up. Yeah. And the teacher has written a note saying that his cold, which they established he had earlier, was more important than them. Yeah. Test is still happening tomorrow. Go study on your own, basically. Right.
So Andy is like, I need to pass this test. We're going to do a study session. Pacey, you supposedly love me, so you're going to help me with this. And he's like, okay, whatever. And the rich dude's like, hey, Jen, let's study at my house.
Yeah, because he's already been hitting on her throughout the day. He's like got his sights set on her.
Well, he hit on her, and then he was hitting on another girl before he came back to her.
Yeah.
But she's like, oh, yeah, we'd get a lot of studying done at your house. Because he's like, oh, I got a hot tub, I got a pool. Mm-hmm. She's like, yeah, it sounds like a lot of studying. And he was like, look, you know, you have the wrong idea. You can invite all your friends. We can make this an episode of Dawson's Creek.
So that's exactly what they do. So they invite Andy and Pacey. And Pacey invites Dawson.
Yeah, and then I think Jen invites Joey.
Is it Jen that does? Okay.
Because she's talking to Joey, and she's like, oh, you should come to the study session with us or whatever. And, like, you know, she's trying to be friendly with her. And Joey is, like, blowing her off and acting like a jerk. And she goes, huh. Jen says, huh. I thought it was our mutual attraction to Dawson that was keeping us apart. I never considered the fact that you're just a bitch.
Was that before? I thought that happened at the house, but yeah, she definitely said that.
No, that was before. And then she's like, I'm sorry, you know, it's like, I'm so sick of talking about all this shit and everything. And she says, okay, you know, I'll let's study together. I'll go with you to this thing.
So, Pacey asks Dawson, and they're all in the van. How does this? He drives a rape van too. This dude.
He does.
So when Dawson gets to the van and sees Joey in there, he hesitates. I wouldn't have gotten in.
I probably wouldn't have either.
But he does.
I would have faked a cramp and been like, "Oh, it's my time of the month. I'm sorry." You're a boy, Dawson. Sympathy pains.
So they're at a rich, sleazy, rapist van dude's house.
Okay.
And, like, he's like, hey, here's, like, the booze. Let's order pizza. It's like, you know, he's trying to have a party, basically. And Andy is, you know,
my parents are out of town, everybody.
Yeah. And he's supposed to be babysitting his little sister. Mm-hmm. He's doing a shit job. And where did she come from? Was she there by herself? Because he didn't pick her up. I mean...
No, she was there. She was there by herself. He walks in and she's sitting at a desk.
Yeah. She's like, what, like 10 maybe?
Yeah, she's probably supposed to be 10, maybe 11. She's got glasses and she is, think of like an 80s sassy little sister, and that's exactly what she is.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I see you and she's using the grown-up language that permeates this entire show.
Yeah.
I see you brought the rabble in.
Yeah, the writers in the show do not try to sound like they're not adults when they're writing the dialogue.
I don't think, it bothered me for a little bit at first, but I kind of get now it's a style. It's stylized dialogue. It's like David Mamet. David Mamet has a very particular, like, a particular language he uses in his scripts, his plays / Glenn Ross. Because I think that's the only movie he made for his plays. But he has a very particular style of speaking, and that permeates his thing, and that's what this is too. Okay. It's the Kevin Smith thing too. There's a language to Kevin Smith's movies. Same kind of thing.
So she's like stalking them the whole time. It's kind of creepy almost, like, because she's not there, but she knows everything that's going on, so she knows she was there. She has
a huge crush on Dawson.
Very much, yeah. Yeah, she's like, at one point she's just like asking him to kiss her.
Well, so at what? First of all, she's like, oh, he sees the way he acts towards Joey. And she's like, "Oh, you two had something together or whatever. Tell me about it. What's And then he sees the way he interacts with Jen, and she's like, "Oh, both of them are your exes, huh, stud? Or whatever." And then later, they do a purity test, which is foreshadowed at the beginning of the episode. That Andy has. It's like a team building exercise, they say.
A team building exercise?
Well, like a group activity.
Okay.
They keep talking about group activities and like group bonding and stuff like that. But anyway, they take the purity test and there's some answers. We'll get to the purity test.
100 questions.
Yeah, I can't believe that. But we'll get to some of the questions in a minute. But there's a question at the end, and the little girl's like, "Oh, I bet you want to know, what's her name? The Joey's answer." And he's like, "Well, you have her test?" And he's like, she goes, "Yeah, I've got it, but it's going to cost you. And then she closes her eyes and puckers her lip. And I was so like, oh my God, this show is so into fucking child sexualization.
It is.
And I was like, don't do it, Dawson. Don't be the fucking creep. Don't be the movie Blank Check, where like an 8-year-old boy kisses a fully grown woman.
Oh my God.
At the end of the movie.
I'm glad I never saw that.
Came out like 2 years ago. We thought about covering it, but we didn't do it. But anyway, so he doesn't. Thank God. And to put everyone's mind at ease, he doesn't for the entire episode. It seems like at the end he's going to, but he doesn't. Instead, he kisses her on the forehead because he blows up at her at one point, and it's just like because he's upset about Joey. So he blows up at her and is like, you know what? You know what kisses can do to you? They can fucking ruin your life. Like, don't wait as long as you can before you kiss somebody. Fuck love. You know, and like, he just screams at her and she runs away crying. So at the end of the night, when she's or the next morning, when she's laying there asleep, he does kiss her, but on the forehead, which is fine.
And she's supposed to be asleep. So, like, what was the point, really? But then, she gets all smiley after he walks out of the room, so she wasn't asleep. So, right. But, like, he didn't know that.
I mean, are we
kind of weird?
Are we supposed to? What? Like, he's just thinking, like, I'll just give me one more. One more person in this room I kissed. It's like, what did he do to Andy when she was asleep?
Oh, my.
But, no, I think the implications he's supposed to be that he knows she's awake or whatever.
I guess.
That she's pretending to be asleep. I don't know. You know how like little kids do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, he doesn't kiss her on the lips, so that's good.
Yes. That would have been upsetting.
But they start to try to study, and Andy's trying to run it. Mm-hmm. And everyone is like everyone's very distracted. Nobody really cares about any of this stuff. So that's when I believe Richie Rich suggests that they do the purity test. Because he's like, what's this? What else you got in your hand? What are you reading? Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, well, look at this magazine. Purity test. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So they all sit around and do a 100-question purity test, which I don't know if you haven't seen the episode, first of all, you're a madman. Why are you even listening to us? But if you haven't seen the episode or any of the episodes, I wonder if they think, man, this episode sounds fucking boring.
Yeah.
But this show does a better job than I think any show I've ever seen of just creating interesting we're hanging out episodes. Where it's like, it feels very organic, despite the language, which is erudite. But it feels very organic, teenagers just hanging out. Like, this is what happens. Mm-hmm. It's taking something that, like, all teenagers or anybody that's ever been a teenager can relate to. Because everybody's been to a party or a study session like this, where you're sitting around talking to each other and stuff, and it just makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
It heightens the drama of it, but they do an excellent job of it.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a really good episode.
It was a super enjoyable episode.
But they sit around reading these questions, and as Andy says, there's only one sheet or whatever of the questions. So we'll pass it around. Everyone's writing on note paper, and we'll pass it around, and everyone will read a question as they go on. So some of these questions are fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever been sexually attracted to a family member?
That's gross. It's
gross, but at least I can see, like, when that was a question, I mean, I instantly went, ugh. But
that's the appropriate response.
But I can see that, like, that happening. Like, I think that's more common than people think, probably. Where, like, not that you'd ever do anything, but just, like, being sexually attracted to a family member. I'm sure that people out there have been like, oh, my cousin's hot, or whatever, you know. It's like, it happens.
I mean, I guess it depends on how close of a family member.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes a difference. But, like, I think it's more common. The next question is, have you ever been sexually attracted to an animal? And I'm like, what the fuck?
And then, have you ever had sex with an animal? Like, they take it
Yeah, I think there's the family member question. I think there's the animal question too. That like they both. And then what were some of the other questions? There were some normal questions like have you ever done it in public, or how many sexual partners have you had, or whatever. But like there were some fucked up questions.
Yeah, I mean the only I think they asked about maybe menage a trois or I don't know
fetishes and stuff. We didn't hear all of the 100 questions.
No, for sure not. But they did ask if you ever had sex with somebody twice your age. That came up.
That was a question, yep. And then the last question was, have you ever been in love? And if so, how many times? Mm-hmm. And I think, like, that was supposed to increase your purity score?
Yeah.
If you've been in love.
Yeah, I think it like, increased your purity score by, like, 2 or something for each number or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. So, they read out the results. They don't read out everyone's answer. But they read out the results, and fucking Richie Rich has got a 66% purity rating, so he's the lowest.
Jen 69.
Somebody in the writer's room was like, you know, it'd be funny, guys. And then after that, it was Joey and Dawson with a combined score of, or like not combined, identical score of 85, I believe. And then Andy's herself was like 90% or something like that. And
they never did tell us Pacey's score.
They did not tell us Pacey's score because Pacey didn't turn in his test. At the beginning, when she wanted to do it with just her and Pacey, he's like, no, I don't want to do it or whatever. And she's like, you know what? I already know what your score is going to be. Your score is going to be like, oh, I talk tough and I act like I'm a Lothario or whatever, but I'm really just like embarrassingly wholesome or whatever. And he's like, yeah, it's me, embarrassingly wholesome. And he walks away. Now, keep that in mind. That's pretty much exactly how he says it. Yeah, that's me, embarrassingly wholesome. And then leaves, because that comes up later.
I don't know why she makes assumptions like that.
But Richie Rich is the asshole who's like, oh, I know why he didn't want to turn it in, because of question 19. Why don't you fucking read question 19? Yeah.
Because it was the if you slept with somebody twice your age question, and everybody who was there remembers and that went down. And she's like, "Oh, ha ha ha! You said yes. That's a joke, right?" And Richie Rich is like, "Oh my god! So it's true. You fucked Tamara." Yeah, well, he didn't call her Tamara. He called her Miss Jacobs. Miss Jacobs, the English teacher. And, she gets all freaked out and upset and mad and like, oh, you lied to me. And, I mean... So she gets upset at him. She says, I can't believe you did it. She says, why would you do it? You know... to have sex. And it's such an easy answer. And she's like, you lied. You said you were embarrassingly wholesome. And it's like, the dude was like... not really saying anything to you. You were saying embarrassingly wholesome. He's like, yeah, that's me, whatever. Like, you know, like he obviously wasn't giving you a real answer. Like, he wasn't saying, yeah, I'm embarrassingly wholesome. And by the way, that's relative. Mm-hmm. You know, also. But she makes him feel guilty because, keep in mind, an adult seduced an underage child. Yeah, he was like 15 at the time. Yeah, and she's like, I mean, in real life, I know it's a show, and he's over 18 and everything, so it doesn't seem as bad as it would be in real life. But in real life, it's like, here's a guy that was victimized by an adult, and now his current girlfriend is making him feel guilty for being a victim. Yeah. Like, awful. Yeah, if this was a female, if he was a female and this was her boyfriend saying this shit, we'd be like, what an asshole. Oh, my God. Yeah, if their boyfriend was like, oh, fucking slut, you give it up for every professor, huh? Or whatever, you know, like, yeah. We'd be like, what a fucking monster. So, but Andy acts like she's the victim. Because her boyfriend has more experience than her. Ridiculous. And that's what it really comes down to, is her own insecurity. Yeah. That he is more experienced than she is. Yeah, because all this happened before he even knew her. Yeah. So it's like, how is she going to hold that against him? It's so dumb. Yeah, I don't like her sometimes. So she storms off into the fucking, I don't know, wilderness of this guy's 20-acre backyard. Right? It is a huge house. And yeah, go ahead. Oh, and then him and Jen decide to go in the hot tub. But before that happens, he and Dawson have a little conversation.
Yeah. So he says, at first it seems like he's being friendly with Dawson. Because he's talking to Dawson and he was like, hey, how are things or whatever? And he's like, oh, I'm like, he's like, he says something about like having sex. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm, he goes, makeup sex. Because they see them run off.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, oh, they'll be having makeup sex in the woods or whatever. Makeup sex, best sex. And Dawson's like, I wouldn't know about that. And he's like, look, the way you and Jen are going after each other, the way you and Joey are going after each other, you'll be having makeup sex soon, Dawson. Don't worry about it. You'll be okay. And he's like, so how am I doing with Jen? And he's like, what? And he goes, well, you dated her, so you know her. Like she's not like most of the high school kids that we go to high school with. She's more sophisticated and everything. How do you think I'm doing? Like I need a better approach to get her in bed and everything. And that's when Dawson's like, that's when it turns.
Yeah. Because
it seems like he's being friendly and like, hey, let's talk about it and everything. And then Dawson's like, look, you're not going to have sex with her. And he's like, oh, Dawson. I'm sorry, but it's definitely happening.
Yeah. And he tells him, you see that guest house? You see the light on in the guest house? Yeah. When you see that light out, that means I'm in there having sex with her.
Yeah.
And the light goes out later.
Yeah, later. So they're in the hot tub. They're making out or whatever. And he's like, hey, just relax, have a good time. She's like, what's your idea of a good time? And he starts kissing her, and he's like, are we on the same page? And she's like, yeah. He does say, they make it very clear he's not a rapist, because he does say, she's like, what if I don't want to have sex?
Yeah.
With you? And he's like, then we don't have sex.
Yeah.
Like we'll have fun other ways, I guess, but like, why wouldn't we have sex? That's essentially his attitude, right?
Right.
And so yeah, she's like, and Dawson says to her before she gets in the hot tub, Dawson's like, look, Jen, he only wants one thing, like
his intentions are not pure.
And she's like, yeah, I know, like.
What makes you think that I don't have the same thing on my mind or something like that?
Yeah, and she's like, he's a teenage boy. We're at his house. I'm going in his hot tub. He, for some reason, finds me attractive. I know what he's thinking.
Yeah. Dawson's so dense, he just assumes everyone else in the world is also dense, I guess.
But so she ends up going up to bed with him, and they fuck.
Obviously. we don't see any of that.
No. We just see the light off. Yeah. And Dawson kind of reacts to it, but it's like, I really wonder where we're at with Dawson and Jen. Because obviously Dawson and Joey are broken up for now.
Right.
I don't know if they intend to get them back together at any point. But, like, he seems kind of jealous, but also, like, not really. Like, because he sees the light and he's like, oh, that sucks or whatever. But then he's mooning over Joey still.
Yeah, like, in the moment when he sees the light, it definitely bothered him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he doesn't, like, hold on to it. That's not his biggest worry in the world.
No, he's totally focused on Joey.
Mm-hmm. But, I don't know. Yeah, I think that it was weird that he cares at all. Like, I literally said when we were watching, I'm like, why the fuck do you care? Because he did act like he cared.
Yeah. But, I guess, like, just because she's his ex. And, like, maybe Dawson has this ideal that he thinks everybody should live up to.
Yeah.
That sex should just be about love and romance rules everything. And, and all these, like, very touchy, gooey, emotional, like, romantic ideas, and he thinks everybody should live up to that.
Right.
And the fact that this guy just wants to fuck and be done, just wants to have sex with as many women as he can. Jen's the next one on the list. And the idea that Jen might also just want to have sex tonight, it doesn't make any sense to him. I don't know if that's what Jen wanted. She sure acted like that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
But, because she looks a little, like, disappointed, I guess, the next day, kind of.
Yeah.
Because the next day, he's just like, hey, thanks for a great time last night. And she's like, oh, okay.
And she said, give me a second to get dressed. We can go down together. And he's like, oh, that's okay. I'll meet you down there.
I'll get you down there. So it's like he doesn't care about her anymore.
That was a weird... it's a very subtle conversation, but it did really kind of frame where they're at.
Yeah. But she looked disappointed, like I said. And it's like, but you said you knew.
Yeah.
And, like, you weren't drunk. Like, you knew, right?
I mean, they were drinking a little bit of wine, and they were only teenagers. They might have been a little drunk.
Yeah, but I mean, not drunk enough.
Yeah. No, yeah, they knew what they were doing.
They certainly didn't frame it that way.
Yeah.
That he like got her hammered or anything. It certainly seemed completely like even that conversation with Dawson, like she had complete agency.
Yeah.
She knew exactly what was going to happen. And she made her choice.
Yeah.
And I guess she's just regretting that choice. Because part of her wants to live up to that Dawson ideal.
Yeah, she doesn't want to act like New York Jen, and she did.
Yeah, and the part of her is New York Jen.
True.
And it's okay to want to have sex just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
When you're a teenager. Sometimes, if you're safe, and they showed the Durex condom ripped open. So they did. They showed the wrapper. They showed the wrapper on his thing just ripped open. Like it was like subtle little like, hey kids,
use condoms.
Jen and Richie Rich were safe, and you should be too. But then so the question on the test: how many times have you fallen in love? That's the one that the little girl told him. She's like, hey, your fucking lady there wrote 2. So he's all upset about that.
That's what really rocks his world, is the idea that Joey was in love with anyone besides him.
Mm-hmm. So he tries to talk to her about it, and she's like, leave me the fuck alone. I said I wanted space. Get away from me. Although
earlier in the episode, that kind of bothered me, because she tries to talk to him in the hallway at school. She's like, hey, how's it going? And she's like, can't we just be friends or whatever? And he's like, you wanted space. I'm giving you space, so leave me alone, basically.
Yep.
And then she's like doing that to him. And it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, she's like, I want my space. Well, the fuck was this morning then?
Yeah, exactly. But so they all fall asleep studying kind of by themselves. And they wake up at 6 a.m. They're like, oh, no. So they have to cram.
Which is, this whole thing is so weird to me. Okay, their test is scheduled for 10 a.m. They are in high school.
Yeah.
This is not college.
Right.
That would make sense if this was college. But no, they wake up at 6. They have 4 hours to study for the test that's at 10. What? When does school start in Cape Side? What the fuck?
Are there any other, classes? Because it's not like it doesn't... Nothing in this episode says they go to other classes at all.
And yeah, so they go to show up for the test, and there's a note on the door like, oh, test is postponed to tomorrow because he's sick. There's not a substitute teacher?
That's what I was thinking, too. Like, that doesn't make any sense. They just well, you're not going to class
Yeah.
It totally makes sense in college. It does not make sense for high school.
No, because they're supposed to be accounted for all day long. They're minors.
Yeah.
This show forgets the age that they're working with a lot. So then they all go take a nap on the football field.
Yeah.
The fuck?
But before any of that happens, they're Pacey engineers this cram session. And in doing so, I guess, Andy falls in love with him again or whatever because he can study.
It's the most... I mean, it makes sense. That would make her wet. Just saying.
But so she apologizes and they kind of make up and everything. And then Joey, after I think it's before they look at the note though. But it's after the study session. She says to Dawson, look, because he blows up at the little girl and everything. She has a conversation with the little girl. And she's like, aren't you supposed to tell me that, love's worth it or whatever? And she's like, look, getting older sucks. And she's like, but sometimes it's really cool, too. So they have a sweet little conversation. And then she says to Dawson in the morning after their study session, she's like, look, the 2 times that I fell in love were both you. And she explains how... the crush was one kind of love and everything. And then after they kissed, it was a completely different kind of love. And she saw him in a completely different way and everything. And she's like, just because we're not together, that doesn't mean my feelings have changed for you. This whole thing is I guess it makes sense for stupid teenagers. But this whole thing is so dumb. Where it's like, we still love each other, but I need to see who I am. There are ways to explore who you are while you're also in a relationship.
Sure.
Dawson's not like a super like controlling dude.
No, but I don't think the problem here is Dawson in any way. The problem is Joey, and Joey doesn't know how to separate herself from Dawson without separating herself completely from Dawson.
Yeah, I guess that's true. She should have gone to Paris.
Yeah.
She could have gone to Paris and discovered herself or whatever, and then come back to Dawson and been fully committed to him.
Yeah, that probably would have been better.
But that is the episode, everyone.
It is.
We didn't go all night, sorry.
And neither would, a bunch of teenagers on a school night normally either. But, it's Dawson's Creek. So.
Yeah, they were able to just get into they were able to go to this dude's house, and no one was accounted for, and Jen's grandma never said anything, and Dawson's mom never said anything.
Yep.
And, I mean, I guess Pacey's parents hate him or whatever, or don't care about him. And Andy's mom is insane. So
yeah.
I guess that makes sense, but...
Yeah, it was interesting.
But anyway, Carol, tell the people where they can stay up all night and do things for us.
You can write us at latefee1994AOL.com.
Yes.
Check out our website at www.retrolatefee.com. And share the tapes with your friends.
See. All right, we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.